The night Amaka Okafor decided to stop trusting her instincts was the same night her marriage quietly began to collapse. If you're new to this channel, just subscribe now, and say it in the comment section. If betrayal had a sound, she would later say, it was the soft click of a suitcase zipper closing while your husband stands behind you, smiling too sweetly. Amaka Okafor believed she was winning at life. At 36, she was the regional operations director at one of Lagos' biggest oil servicing firms. Her office on the 15th floor overlooked Victoria Island, all glass and ambition. Her name carried weight in boardrooms dominated by men twice her age. Contracts bent in her favor. Deals closed when she spoke. At home in Lekki, she lived in a pristine 4-bedroom duplex tucked inside a quiet estate lined with palm trees and identical black gates. The house was elegant but not loud, cream walls, gold-accented mirrors, carefully chosen art pieces. It was the kind of home people posted on Instagram with captions like "God when." And then there was Tunde. Tunde Okafor had a voice that could calm storms. Tall, easy smile, always well-groomed. The kind of man security guards greeted warmly and neighbors praised. "You're lucky, Amaka," they would say. "Your husband is so respectful." For years, she believed it. The promotion came on a Wednesday morning. Her managing director called her into his office and closed the door gently. "Amaka, Abuja needs restructuring," he said, folding his hands. "We need someone sharp. Someone who doesn't blink." She didn't blink. "You'll be there for 2 weeks. Temporary assignment. But if this goes well, we're looking at executive board consideration next quarter." Executive board. Her heart hammered, but her face remained composed. "When do I leave, sir?" "Sunday." She walked back to her office in a daze, the Lagos sun blazing against the glass. Executive board meant influence. It meant security. It meant she would finally silence the whispering relatives who claimed she was too career-focused for a woman. That evening, she told Tunde. He was in the kitchen, tasting stew from a wooden spoon. He turned slowly when she spoke. "Abuja," he repeated. "For 2 weeks," she said carefully. "It's big, Tunde." He smiled immediately. "Too quickly." "That's amazing, baby." He crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." His arms felt warm. Familiar. But something in his embrace was different. It lingered just a second too long, as if memorizing her. "You'll be fine here?" she asked, pulling back slightly. "Of course," he said. "What's 2 weeks? I'll survive. I might even miss you." He chuckled. But that night, as they lay in bed, he was unusually affectionate. Fingers tracing her shoulder. Kissing her forehead repeatedly. "Don't worry about anything," he murmured. "Your home is safe with me." The words were comforting. They were also strange. Amaka wasn't the suspicious type. She believed in partnership, not paranoia. Yet as she packed her suitcase on Saturday night, a faint unease curled in her stomach. Tunde hovered near the doorway, watching. "You packed enough?" he asked. "It's 2 weeks, not exile," she teased. He smiled, but his eyes flickered away. On Sunday morning, he insisted on driving her to the airport. He carried her suitcase himself, refused to let the porter touch it. At the departure gate, he held her face gently. "Call me every night." "I will. And don't stress too much. Remember to eat." She laughed. "You sound like my mother." He kissed her forehead again. "Just come back to me quickly." As she walked toward security, she glanced back once. He was still standing there, watching. Not waving. Just watching. Abuja welcomed her with dry heat and endless meetings. By the 3rd day, she was buried in reports, staff audits, and tense negotiations. She barely had time to breathe. Tunde called often. Morning calls. Afternoon check-ins. Late-night video chats. "Show me your hotel room," he'd say playfully. "You miss me that much?" Terribly. On the fourth evening, she returned to her hotel exhausted. Her phone buzzed as she kicked off her heels. Auntie Bose. Her neighbor. Amaka frowned. Auntie Bose rarely called unless it involved estate dues or generator schedules. She answered. "Good evening, Ma." There was a pause. Then a sigh. "Amaka, my daughter. I hope I'm not overstepping." Her stomach tightened. "Is everything okay? I don't want to interfere in your marriage." The word sliced through the air. "What do you mean?" Another pause. Lower voice now. "There is a woman in your house." Amaka's back straightened slowly. "I beg your pardon. I've seen her twice. Yesterday afternoon. And this evening. She entered with your husband. She has a key." Silence roared in Amaka's ears. "Maybe a cousin?" Auntie Bose offered gently. Amaka swallowed. "Describe her." "Light-skinned. Long braids. Confident. Not like a visitor. She carried grocery bags. And today, she was wearing something very comfortable." Comfortable. Amaka's fingers tightened around her phone. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "My balcony faces your compound. I know what I saw." A long breath. "Thank you, Ma." When the call ended, Amaka sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the cream walls. The air conditioner hummed. Abuja traffic murmured faintly outside. Her mind began assembling excuses on Tunde's behalf. Maybe it was business. Maybe someone needed temporary accommodation. Maybe. Her phone buzzed again. Tunde calling. She stared at his name on the screen. For 3 rings. 4. Then she answered. "Hi, baby." His voice sounded bright. "How was your day?" "Long," she replied evenly. "Sorry, love. You need a massage when you get back." "I might," she said. "What are you doing?" "Just watching TV." In the background, she heard faint laughter. Female laughter. Soft. Quick. Then silence. Her heart skipped. "Who's that?" she asked lightly. "Who?" That laugh. A beat. "Oh," he said casually. "TV show. Comedy series." Amaka closed her eyes. "Turn the camera on," she said suddenly. "What?" "Video call." A pause longer than comfortable. "Network is bad," he replied. "The Wi-Fi is acting up." She said nothing. "Are you there?" he asked. "Yes," she answered softly. "I'm here." They spoke for another minute, ordinary words floating between them like fragile glass. When the call ended, she remained still. Then she stood up. Opened her laptop. Booked the earliest flight to Lagos the next morning. She did not call Tunde back. She did not confront him. She did not cry. Instead, she sat by the window, watching Abuja's city lights flicker in the dark, and felt something inside her harden. If there was truly a woman in her house, she would not be warned. She would not announce herself. She would not give them time to prepare. Her return would be quiet. Unexpected. And final. For the first time since her promotion, Amaka Okafor felt something stronger than ambition. She felt clarity. The plane touched down in Lagos at 7:10 p.m., and by 8:45 p.m., Amaka's car was rolling through the familiar gates of her estate in Lekki. The security guard straightened immediately when he saw her headlights. "Madam." "Welcome back," he said, surprised. She lowered the window halfway. "Good evening, Musa." Olga didn't tell us you were coming, he added innocently. I like surprises, she replied calmly. He smiled, unaware of the weight in her voice, and waved her through. Her compound light was on. The curtains were open. Music drifted faintly from inside the house. Not the usual jazz Tunde preferred. This was louder. Playful. Intimate. Amaka parked slowly, switched off the engine, and sat still for a moment. Her pulse was steady. Too steady. The kind of calm that arrives before a storm. She stepped out quietly, heels in hand to avoid unnecessary noise. The tiled pathway felt colder than usual beneath her feet. The front door was not locked. That alone told her everything. Tunde was meticulous about locking doors. Always double-checked. Always careful. She pushed it open gently. The scent hit her first. Vanilla. Not her brand. Amaka preferred subtle floral notes. This was heavy. Sugary. Deliberate. She stepped fully into the living room. And froze. A woman stood near the center table, barefoot on Amaka's Persian rug, holding a wine glass. She wore a silk robe, Amaka's silk robe. The pale champagne one she bought in Dubai 2 years ago. The woman was light-skinned, slim, long braids cascading down her back. She looked comfortable. Too comfortable. She was laughing at something on her phone. Then she noticed the silence. Her eyes lifted slowly. Their gazes locked. For a second, confusion flickered across the woman's face. "Who are you?" Amaka asked. Her voice was calm. Controlled. Almost polite. The woman blinked. "I..." Before she could finish, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Tunde emerged from the bedroom. Shirtless. Barefoot. His expression shifted from casual to horror in less than a second. Amaka. Silence swallowed the room. The wine glass trembled slightly in the woman's hand. Tunde's mouth opened, then closed again. Amaka set her heels down gently on the console table. "Good evening," she said. Neither of them responded. "I asked a question," she continued, eyes still fixed on the woman. "Who are you?" The woman swallowed, straightening her posture as though remembering dignity. "Oh," she said slowly. "You must be Amaka." Must be. In her own house. "I'm Cynthia," she added, as if introducing herself at a dinner party. Amaka nodded once. "And what exactly are you doing in my house, Cynthia?" Tunde stepped forward quickly. "Baby, listen." She raised a hand without looking at him. "I'm speaking to her." Cynthia shifted her weight. Tunde said. Tunde said what? Cynthia hesitated, glancing at him. Tunde's voice cracked slightly. "It's not what it looks like." Amaka finally turned to him. "Then what does it look like, Tunde?" He ran a hand through his hair. She needed somewhere to stay for a few days. "In my robe." Silence. "In my living room?" "With wine?" "After 9 p.m. Cynthia set the glass down carefully. "You don't need to be dramatic." Amaka looked at her slowly. "Dramatic?" "Yes. Tunde told me things were complicated between you two. That you're barely around. That this house is technically his anyway." The words landed like acid. Amaka felt the sting, but her face didn't change. "Oh," she said quietly. "Technically his?" Tunde stepped closer. "Cynthia, stop talking." "No," Cynthia replied sharply. "Why should I? You told me you built this house together. That you're basically separated." "Separated?" Amaka repeated softly. Tunde looked trapped. "Amaka, I was going to explain." "When?" she asked. Before or after she replaced my perfume collection? Cynthia frowned. Excuse me. Amaka inhaled slowly. The details were everywhere now that she allowed herself to see them. A different throw pillow arrangement. Her framed wedding photo slightly tilted. A pair of unfamiliar sandals near the staircase. Not a visitor. Installed. How long? Amaka asked, still calm. Tunde hesitated. Answer me. A few months, Cynthia said bluntly. Tunde shot her a look of panic. It's not like that. A few months. Amaka repeated. The room felt smaller. The music was still playing faintly in the background. A love song. Mocking. Cynthia folded her arms. He said you don't even sleep in the same room most nights. Amaka's eyes snapped to Tunde. That's what you said. He stammered. I was frustrated. So you moved her into my bedroom? Amaka asked quietly. Cynthia didn't deny it. Instead, she lifted her chin slightly. The guest room is too small. Too small. Amaka let out a soft breath that almost sounded like laughter. I see. Tunde stepped forward desperately. Amaka, please. Let's talk privately. There is nothing private left in this house, she replied. Cynthia glanced around, irritation replacing confidence. Look, I don't think this needs to be a scene. A scene? Amaka echoed. Yes. Adults handle things maturely. Amaka walked slowly toward the center of the room. Her steps were steady. You moved into my home, she said evenly. You wore my clothes. Slept in my bed. And you think I'm making a scene? Cynthia's jaw tightened. Tunde told me you were emotionally unavailable, she said defensively. He said he was lonely. Amaka looked at her husband. Lonely? Tunde's voice dropped. You're always working. And that justifies this. No, he snapped. It doesn't. I messed up. But it wasn't supposed to get this far. How far is this? Amaka asked softly. No one answered. The weight of truth hung thick in the air. She turned toward the hallway slowly. Which side of the bed? She asked. Tunde frowned. What? Which side did she sleep on? Silence again. Cynthia shifted uncomfortably. Amaka nodded once. Interesting. Tunde stepped closer. Amaka, please don't do this. She looked at him with a gaze so calm it unsettled him more than anger would have. I'm not doing anything. She walked to the TV console and picked up the remote. Muted the music. The house fell into heavy silence. Then she turned back to them. You should both enjoy tonight, she said. Neither spoke. Because tomorrow will be very interesting. Her tone wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was certain. Cynthia's confidence flickered for the first time. What does that mean? She asked. Amaka gave a small, polite smile. You'll find out. She picked up her suitcase from the doorway. I'll be in the guest room, she added calmly. Since my bedroom is occupied. Tunde moved instinctively. Baby, wait. She stopped and faced him one last time that night. For the record, she said quietly, I was never emotionally unavailable. I was building a future. Apparently, you were redecorating it. She walked down the hallway without another word. Behind her, the silence between Tunde and Cynthia was no longer romantic. It was terrified. Amaka did not cry that night. She lay on the guest room bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled whispers coming from what used to be her bedroom. Every creak of the floorboards, every hushed argument, every footstep felt like a nail being pressed slowly into her chest, but she refused to bleed where they could see it. Around midnight, she heard Cynthia's voice, sharper now. You said she wouldn't react like this. Tunde hissed back. How was I supposed to know she'd come back early? So what now? I'll handle it. Handle it. Amaka almost smiled in the darkness. By 5:30 a.m., she was already awake. She rose quietly, tied her hair into a low bun, and changed into a simple navy dress. No makeup. No drama. Just composure. She stepped into the kitchen. The sight irritated her more than she expected. Cynthia's handbag was on the counter. A half-empty wine bottle stood beside the sink. 2 used glasses. Her favorite ceramic mug was sitting in the dish rack. Amaka began washing the glasses calmly. At 7 a.m., Tunde walked in, freshly showered but visibly exhausted. His eyes were red. You're up early, he said cautiously. I live here, she replied. He swallowed. Can we talk? She dried her hands and faced him. You have 5 minutes. He exhaled. It started as nothing. Just someone I met at a friend's party. We talked. I felt seen. Seen, she repeated evenly. Yes. You've been so focused on work. Every time I try to talk, you're on your laptop. I was working to secure our future. Our future or yours, he shot back, frustration surfacing. Amaka studied him carefully. This is what you tell yourself, she asked quietly. That my success diminished you. He looked away. Cynthia entered the kitchen at that moment, wearing Amaka's oversized t-shirt and shorts. She stopped when she saw them facing each other. The tension was thick. Morning, Cynthia muttered, reaching for water. Amaka watched her open the fridge without hesitation. How long have you been staying here? Amaka asked directly. Cynthia hesitated, then shrugged. A week. A week? Amaka's gaze shifted to Tunde. She needed somewhere. After hotel bookings. Amaka cut in. Both of them froze. Tunde's face drained slightly. What are you talking about? Amaka walked past him calmly and picked up her phone from the counter. She scrolled, then turned the screen toward him. Bank alerts. Transfers. Large withdrawals. Hotel payments in Victoria Island. You thought I wouldn't notice, she asked softly. Tunde stared at the screen. Cynthia frowned. What is that? Our joint business account, Amaka replied coolly. The one meant for our real estate investments. Cynthia's eyes widened slightly. Tunde tried to recover. It wasn't that much. 16 million naira in 4 months, Amaka interrupted. That's not that much. Silence crashed into the room. Cynthia slowly set her bottle down. You told me you were financially independent, she said to Tunde, suspicion creeping in. I am, he snapped defensively. Really? Amaka tilted her head. Because those transfers say otherwise. Cynthia's confidence began to fracture. You said the house was yours, she pressed him. It is ours, he corrected weakly. Amaka let out a small laugh. Ours? She walked to a drawer and pulled out a brown envelope. I was going to wait, she said calmly. But since everyone is awake. She slid documents onto the counter. Property deed. Purchase agreement. Payment confirmation. Cynthia leaned closer. The name on the documents was clear. Amaka Okafor. Purchased 3 years before the wedding. Fully paid. Tunde's breathing changed. You never told me. You never asked, Amaka replied. Cynthia stepped back slowly, as if the kitchen floor had shifted. So, this house is legally mine, Amaka finished. Cynthia looked at Tunde, betrayal flashing across her face. You told me you built it. Tunde stammered, I contributed. Contributed what? Amaka asked quietly. Furniture suggestions. Cynthia let out a short, disbelieving laugh. So I moved into another woman's house based on lies. Amaka met her eyes. Yes. The simplicity of the answer made it heavier. Cynthia crossed her arms. Well, that's between you two. I didn't force him. No, Amaka agreed calmly. You didn't. She turned to Tunde. But you forced this house to witness disrespect. He ran a hand over his face. What do you want, Amaka? The question hung in the air. She studied him for a long moment. I want peace, she said finally. And how do we get that? He asked, almost hopeful. We remove what disrupts it. Cynthia's jaw tightened. Are you throwing me out? Amaka looked at her steadily. I'm reclaiming my home. Tunde's voice grew desperate. Let's not escalate this. Escalate. Amaka repeated softly. You moved your mistress into my bedroom. Cynthia flinched at the word. Mistress, she echoed sharply. What would you prefer? Amaka asked. Cynthia opened her mouth but said nothing. Tunde tried one last time. We can fix this. Amaka's expression shifted, not angry, not hurt, just clear. There is nothing to fix, she said. You're overreacting. That did it. For the first time, something flashed in her eyes. Overreacting, she repeated. She stepped closer to him. You lied. You stole. You disrespected me in my own home. And you think this is an overreaction? He fell silent. Cynthia looked between them, unease growing. You told me she was cold, she said quietly to Tunde. She doesn't look cold to me. Amaka gave a small nod. Cold women don't build empires, she said. They survive them. She gathered the documents neatly and placed them back into the envelope. I suggest, she continued calmly, that you both start making alternative living arrangements. Tunde stared at her. You're serious? Very. Cynthia shifted again. Tunde. For the first time, there was doubt in her voice. Amaka turned and walked toward the staircase. Halfway up, she paused. Oh, she added without looking back. One more thing. They both looked up. I recorded last night. The color drained from Tunde's face. Recorded what? Cynthia demanded. Everything, Amaka replied calmly. Including the part where you bragged about replacing me. Cynthia's mouth went dry. You can't. I can, Amaka interrupted. And I did. She continued up the stairs without another word. Behind her, the kitchen erupted into hushed panic. What did you say? Cynthia whispered fiercely. You said it was fine. How was I supposed to know she'd? Their voices faded as Amaka entered her former bedroom. She stood at the doorway for a moment. The sheets were different. Her side table rearranged. Her perfume bottle shifted. She walked in slowly, inhaling once. Then she opened the wardrobe. Her clothes were pushed aside to make space. Amaka touched the fabric of her own dress gently. And finally, she allowed herself one deep, steady breath. Not of grief. Of decision. This was no longer about emotion. It was about consequence. And Amaka Okafor had always understood numbers. And consequences. Perfectly. By 8:15 a.m., Amaka was seated at the dining table with a cup of coffee, her laptop open, her posture straight. If a stranger walked in, they would assume it was an ordinary workday in the Okafor home. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the polished floors. It was peaceful. deceptively peaceful. Upstairs, drawers were opening and closing. Low, hurried whispers echoed faintly. Panic has a sound. It is restless. At exactly 9 a.m., there was a firm knock at the gate. Tunde, who had been pacing the living room, froze. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Amaka didn't look up from her screen. "Yes." The knock came again. Louder this time. Cynthia appeared at the staircase, dressed now, her braids tied back tightly. "Who is that?" she asked under her breath. Amaka closed her laptop calmly and stood. "I'll get it," she said. She walked toward the door with unhurried steps. When she opened it, 3 men stood outside the gate. One wore a tailored grey suit and carried a black briefcase. Another held a slim folder with official markings. The third was older, dressed in traditional attire, cap tilted slightly to the side. Chief Okafor. Her uncle. The grey-suited man nodded politely. "Good morning, Mrs. Okafor." "Good morning, barrister." Tunde's heartbeat visibly accelerated as he approached from behind. "What's going on?" Amaka stepped aside and allowed the men in. The estate suddenly felt smaller. The lawyer spoke first, voice calm and measured. "Mr. Tunde Okafor." Tunde swallowed. "Yes. I represent Mrs. Amaka Okafor regarding this property." Cynthia's eyes widened slightly. "This property?" Tunde repeated, forcing a small laugh. "This is my house." The property officer opened his folder and removed documents. According to the Lagos State Land Registry, the legal owner of this property is Mrs. Amaka Okafor. Purchased 3 years prior to the marriage. Fully paid. No joint ownership registered. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Cynthia slowly turned to look at Tunde. "You said it was yours," she whispered. Tunde's face was pale. It's our matrimonial home." The lawyer nodded slightly. "Which does not override sole ownership." Chief Okafor cleared his throat, his voice deep and steady. "My niece worked hard for this house. Before she married you." Amaka remained composed. The lawyer continued, "Mr. Okafor, you are hereby given 48 hours to vacate this property voluntarily. Failure to comply will result in formal eviction proceedings." Cynthia stepped backward, shock written all over her face. 48 hours. Tunde's voice cracked. "Amaka, you can't be serious." She looked at him evenly. "I am." "You're throwing me out." "I'm reclaiming my property." He laughed weakly. "This is petty." "Petty?" Chief Okafor's eyes flashed. "Young man, bringing another woman into my niece's house is not petty." Cynthia shifted uncomfortably. The confidence she carried the previous night was gone. The property officer placed a document on the center table. "Please sign acknowledgement of notice." Tunde stared at the paper like it might explode. "You planned this," he said quietly to Amaka. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. His eyes searched her face. "Since when?" "Since the moment I realized my peace was being negotiated without my consent." Cynthia's breathing grew shallow. "Tunde, you didn't tell me any of this." He snapped, frustration boiling over. "Because it wasn't necessary." "It wasn't necessary," she shot back. "You told me she was emotionally distant. That you were practically separated." Amaka folded her arms calmly. Cynthia's voice trembled slightly. "You said this house was yours. That she barely contributed." The lawyer glanced briefly at Amaka, then back at Tunde. "Mr. Okafor, we require your signature." Tunde looked cornered. His pride was unraveling in front of strangers. "You're embarrassing me," he muttered to Amaka. She tilted her head slightly. "You embarrassed yourself." Chief Okafor stepped forward. Sign it. For a long moment, Tunde resisted. Then slowly, reluctantly, he picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed. The sound of ink scratching paper felt final. The lawyer collected the document neatly. 48 hours begin now. He turned to Amaka. We will return if necessary. Thank you, she replied. The three men exited the house, leaving behind a silence so thick it felt alive. Cynthia was the first to speak. So, where are we going? She asked quietly. Tunde rubbed his temples. I'll figure something out. She stared at him. With what money? His head snapped up. What do you mean? You said you were financially stable. I am. Then why did she mention joint business accounts? Cynthia pressed. Why were you using shared funds? Tunde's jaw tightened. Lower your voice. Answer me. Amaka watched the shift unfold like a predictable equation. Trust minus truth equals collapse. You told me you were building something separate, Cynthia continued, hurt creeping in. You said she didn't even notice half the time. She didn't, he snapped. Amaka finally spoke, her tone measured. I noticed. Both of them fell silent. She stepped closer, not angry, not loud, just precise. I noticed the withdrawals. I noticed the late-night business meetings. I noticed the distance. I simply chose to gather facts before responding. Cynthia's face changed. You knew, she asked. I suspected, Amaka corrected. Tunde looked almost betrayed. Why didn't you confront me? Because confrontation without preparation is weakness. The words landed with authority. Cynthia looked at Tunde again, this time with something close to regret. You said she was naive, she whispered. Amaka let out a soft breath. Naive women don't survive corporate boardrooms, she said. The room felt colder. Tunde's shoulders sagged slightly, as if reality had finally settled fully onto him. Amaka, he said more quietly now, we can still talk this through. She shook her head gently. I already have. He looked around the living room, the art pieces, the furniture, the staircase he once walked confidently. Everything suddenly looked borrowed. Cynthia crossed her arms, her voice no longer sharp but uncertain. You should have told me the truth. Tunde snapped, this isn't about you. It became about me the moment I moved in, she shot back. Amaka stepped back toward the dining area. I suggest, she said calmly, you both use your remaining time wisely. Tunde stared at her. You're really doing this? Yes. No second chance. She held his gaze steadily. You moved a stranger into my home. The simplicity of it silenced him. For the first time since she walked in the night before, Tunde looked small. Not because she raised her voice, but because she didn't. Cynthia slowly picked up her handbag from the kitchen counter. I need air, she muttered, walking toward the door. Tunde watched her leave, realization dawning too late. Amaka returned to her seat at the dining table and reopened her laptop. Emails waited. Deadlines waited. Life waited. Behind her, she heard Tunde sink into the couch. The house was quiet again. But this time, the silence belonged to her. By the end of the first 24 hours, the house no longer felt contaminated. It felt transitional. Cardboard boxes appeared in the hallway. Suitcases lay open on the bedroom floor. Drawers emptied. Tunde moved like a man underwater, slow, heavy, disoriented. The confidence he once carried through those rooms had evaporated. Every object he touched seemed to remind him that he was handling things that were no longer his. Amaka did not supervise. She did not argue. She did not interfere. She worked from the dining table, taking calls, approving documents, reviewing projections. If a client could see her through the screen, they would have no idea her marriage was being dismantled behind her. Around noon, Cynthia returned. Her expression had changed. Gone was the smirk. Gone was the subtle entitlement. In its place was calculation. She stepped into the living room and saw Tunde kneeling beside an open suitcase. "You're actually packing," she said quietly. He didn't look up. "What does it look like?" She glanced toward the dining area where Amaka sat typing. "She's serious," Cynthia murmured. "Yes." A pause. "So where are we going?" Tunde finally looked at her. "We?" Cynthia's brows furrowed. "Obviously." He hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Her eyes sharpened. "You don't have somewhere ready?" "I'll get an apartment," he said quickly. "It's just temporary." "With what money?" she asked again, this time firmer. Tunde's jaw tightened. "I'll sort it out." Cynthia laughed under her breath. "You've been sorting things out for months." Amaka's fingers paused briefly over her keyboard. She didn't turn. Cynthia stepped closer to Tunde, lowering her voice. "You told me you had investments. Property. Liquidity." "I do," he insisted. "Then why does she look like the only one in control?" Silence. That silence answered her better than words. Cynthia straightened slowly. "You lied to me," she said, not loudly, but clearly. Tunde stood up defensively. "I didn't lie. You said the house was yours. It's our matrimonial home. It's her name on the paper." He said nothing. "You said she was distant and uninterested." "She is?" Cynthia cut him off sharply. "She's sitting there running her company while evicting you without raising her voice. That's not uninterested. That's powerful." The word lingered. Powerful. Amaka allowed herself the smallest exhale. Tunde's frustration flared. "So what, you're taking her side now?" Cynthia shook her head slowly. "I'm taking the side of reality." That landed harder than Amaka's lawyer had. For the first time, Tunde looked unsure of everything. Cynthia grabbed her handbag. "I'm not moving into chaos," she said plainly. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means when you figure your life out, maybe we'll talk." His face fell. "Cynthia?" But she was already walking toward the door. She paused only once, turning slightly toward Amaka. Their eyes met. There was no warmth there. But there was recognition. "You knew," Cynthia said quietly. "Yes," Amaka replied. Cynthia nodded once, almost respectfully, then left. The door closed softly. Tunde stood in the center of the living room alone. The silence felt different now. He looked at Amaka. "She left?" Amaka saved her document before responding. "I'm not surprised." He ran his hands over his face. "This isn't how it was supposed to go." "How was it supposed to go?" she asked calmly. He had no answer. He walked toward her slowly. "Amaka?" "I made mistakes." She looked up at him steadily. "Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary," she said. This was a decision. He sank into the chair opposite her. "I felt overshadowed," he admitted quietly. She didn't interrupt. "You were rising so fast. Everyone praised you. I felt invisible." Her voice remained level. "So you chose someone who made you feel bigger?" He swallowed. "Yes. At the cost of respect." He looked down. "I didn't think you'd ever leave." "That," she said softly, "was your greatest miscalculation." The truth of it settled heavily between them. "I still love you," he whispered. She studied him carefully. "Love without loyalty is appetite," she replied. He flinched. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. "What happens after I leave?" he asked. "I change the locks." "And us?" "There is no us in a house where I had to prove ownership." Her tone was not cruel. It was final. By evening, half the bedroom was empty. By the next morning, most of his belongings were gone. On the second day, a small moving van arrived. Neighbors pretended not to watch. Tunde carried the last box to the gate and turned back. Amaka stood on the balcony, composed, hands resting lightly on the railing. He walked toward the entrance one final time. "Can I say something?" he asked. She descended the stairs slowly. "You already have." He stopped in front of her. "I was stupid." "Yes." "I was insecure." "Yes." "I thought you'd never choose yourself over me." She met his eyes steadily. "I will always choose myself over disrespect." He nodded slowly, absorbing it. "If I fix things, if I rebuild, would you ever reconsider?" She didn't hesitate. "No." The certainty in her voice left no space for hope. He let out a shaky breath. "Then this is goodbye." "Yes." He stepped outside the gate. For a brief second, it seemed he might say something else. Instead, he got into the van. The engine started. The gate closed. The sound echoed. Amaka stood there for several moments after the vehicle disappeared down the street. Then she turned around. Inside the house, the air felt lighter. She walked upstairs into her bedroom. The wardrobe was half empty now, but only on his side. She opened the windows wide. Fresh air flooded the space. She stripped the bed completely, removing every sheet, every pillowcase. She called a cleaning service. By evening, the room smelled different. Crisp. Neutral. Untouched. Over the next 2 weeks, Amaka moved with quiet precision. She met with her financial advisor and formally separated every shared account. She reviewed the joint business and removed his access. She filed the necessary legal documents. No drama. No social media announcements. No public spectacle. Just execution. She renovated the bedroom, new curtains, new bedding, new paint accent behind the headboard. She replaced the front door locks. Installed additional security cameras. Not out of fear. Out of closure. Word eventually reached her that Tunde had rented a modest apartment in Surulere. Cynthia was nowhere to be seen. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday evening, the gate buzzer rang. Amaka checked the camera monitor. Tunde. He looked thinner. Less polished. She stepped outside but did not open the gate. "What do you want?" she asked calmly. He held onto the bars slightly. "I made a mistake," he said, voice strained. Cynthia left when the money stopped flowing. She nodded once. "I assumed. I was wrong about everything." "Yes. I see that now." She watched him carefully. "I've changed," he continued. "I've had time to think." She said nothing. "I miss my home." Her gaze did not soften. "You brought a stranger into my home," she said quietly. "Now you are the stranger." The words landed with quiet force. He closed his eyes briefly. "Please," he whispered. She stepped back. "I hope you find peace, Tunde." Then she pressed the gate control. The metal slid shut fully. She turned off the porch light. Inside, the house was warm. Still. Entirely hers. That night, Amaka lay in her restored bedroom, windows slightly open, curtains swaying gently in the Lagos breeze. For the first time in years, there was no tension beside her. No doubt. No disturbance. Just space. And peace. She closed her eyes. and slept like a queen in her own house.